Here. Yeah, it's here time, everybody. Been waiting for this one, haven't you? The latest film from Robert Zemeckis, acclaimed filmmaker. Made some of the most important movies ever, you know? None of them are from this decade, or the previous decade, or the previous decade. His primarily good works are from the 80s and the 90s. But he's still a guy who can get stuff made, I think. I don't know. Because this is a small budget compared to a lot of his other stuff. Or I think it was more like they wanted to use more money to make this movie and then he couldn't get more money, so it's not super expensive. Mid budget. For this weird anomaly of a film that's kind of for nobody, but is for everybody. Yeah, it's weird. I like Zemeckis. I've never been against him as a filmmaker. He's made some good movies. He's made some bad movies. And who hasn't, right? He is one of those directors of a certain crop. I think like Jon Favreau's entered this like canon too, and Ang Lee, where it's more like building the devices and tools for the next filmmaker to perfect them. You know, when he does like Polar Express and stuff, that's what he's doing. And then I guess if this, like the de-aging technology or just like the way we move a camera or whatever, the way we tell stories, I don't know. This is a really weird movie. There's more about this movie than I thought there would be that I kind of wanted to talk about. I didn't know how deep we're going to get into this. It's not a lot of anything, but I think the circumstances around this movie are very perplexing. It's based on a comic strip, and you're like, that's fun? Like a comic story about pictures in one location makes sense. That's an artist able to capture one moment, change it a bunch of different times. That makes sense to me. This might work more if it's like a stage play, but then like the way we like transition and edit into different shots, I guess it makes sense that it's a movie. If you aren't familiar with the premise of this film, this is the reteaming of the Forrest Gump film. Not just the director, but the writer and the stars. We got Robert Zemeckis here, we got Eric Roth here, we got Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. The big names from Forrest Gump. They're all back to take us through a journey in time about the American suburban life or whatever. It starts with the concept of the dinosaurs all the way up to 2024 or something. Pandemic-ish era is represented. I guess it's 2024. I don't know if we actually see Robin Wright or Tom Hanks play their age, but they play every other age. They play young. It's weird. So the camera doesn't move. It's fixed in one location. Then we go on a journey through time for all that. It's not like shown in like sequence where it's like we're going up and up in time. It's in different moments in time. Snapshots that like fade to different like moments. Here's like a block that's expanding to show us we're going back in time. Or if like someone walks out of a room, they walk back in makeup and they're older or younger. It's that kind of experience, which I guess on paper is fun, something to explore in there. It's a creative enough idea where if you're a name like Zemeckis, a name like Eric Roth, and you have talent behind it that people want to go to the movie to see, like Tom Hanks, then you can make it, and it'll be exciting. If it was like a no-name director with a no-name cast, I don't think it's anything. But these are names people like, right? I bring up the Forrest Gump comparisons because I think that's the perfect encapsulation of a moment in time for a filmmaker and the things that they want to talk about on film. Forrest Gump's a very boomer movie where it's like, look at how cool everything was in the 60s and 70s. And isn't that exciting and stuff? And you're like, I guess, right? This movie's the same way, except it's on like a more low stakes scale in a less interesting story. I'm not the biggest Forrest Gump fan. I like The Restaurant that came out from it. I can't say it's a movie I think is interesting or fun or I want to go back and see. We'll talk about it at some point on this channel, I'm certain. But to do a lower stakes version of that concept, like look at history through the 50s to 2003, essentially. That doesn't do anything for me. Like I don't think my generation gives a shit about that. It's such a boomer idea, which is just like, get a house, get a normal job, your ambitions die. It's a very depressing film, which is surprising because I don't think Forrest Gump is that depressing. It's more like, look at how cool everything is. Look at this guy just floating by, getting around. This movie's like, you're going to lose every single dream and ambition you have because of one choice you make in your life, and you may never fully be happy or a fully realized person. You just have to accept that. And eventually we just die. That is this movie. Some people, make it big. Other people, they just live in like a house. And I guess that's like monumental in some cases, but it's about you slowly dying inside at the same time. And I'm just like, that is a weird way to put this, because you'd think it'd be about like the uplifting nature of like a family and experiencing your entire life in one location, and it is kind of about that. It's more about like the intimacies of the family as opposed to like, this is where they were when like the OJ Simpson stuff happened. I thought it was going to be more like that, more in the vein of something like that. I don't even think we see like the moon landing. I don't think we see like any newsworthy events. There's like a couple of times where in like World War II era, they're like, they dropped the bombs. And you're like, okay. That's kind of it for like those things, which is so anti-Forrest Gump, which is very surprising. The other thing about this movie is like the de-aging technology. It's primarily for Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. Now, when we're talking about these two actors, we know what they look like in the time period, at the age they're supposed to play. We see Tom Hanks show up when his character is 19. Assumedly, Robin Wright's character is the same age. They're teenagers when they show up. They don't look like teenagers. Now, we know what a young Tom Hanks looks like. It doesn't look like that. It's very weird. He still moves and talks like modern-day Tom Hanks. And that's distracting and weird and doesn't work. And it does not help when we're jumping through decades and these two leads look the freaking same on every single conceivable level. They don't look like they are changing anything about themselves except maybe their hairdo. And then as they get older, we put makeup on them. The de-aging stuff kind of works to smooth out the wrinkles, but that's the face of a man in his 60s. That's the face of a woman who is not 19. It's not working on that capacity. But their performances are good enough. They don't get much to do. It's more like fall into family roles, and that's kind of boring. Robin Wright's the most interesting because she is like a woman who's like, I could be something, I got pregnant, and now I can't be anything, which is sucky and annoying and only comes to like a fully realized version of somebody later in the life, which I guess is accurate. I don't know. It's such a specifically weird movie. I'm not sure I like it, but it's not just about this family. There's like other side stories that we see throughout this. We get some dinosaurs. They look fine, like cheap $50 million CG movie. Fine. It's fine. There's a storyline where the house is built like across the street from where Benjamin Franklin's illegitimate bastard son lives, named Billy Franklin. So the house is across the street from like a historic landmark. So in like the background, we only see this house. We get like flashbacks to like Benjamin Franklin going to visit. That's a weird storyline, but it's in there. And then the next people to own the house are like a couple in like the 1900, like, yeah, because the house was built in like 1900. And then this couple moves in and he's like obsessed with flying an airplane. And she's like, that's a death machine. Don't fly on the death machine. And he's like, I'm going to fly on the death machine. And then he dies, not from the airplane, from influenza, which is such a stupid joke, but it worked. And then the next couple to own the house is the guy that invented the Lazy Boy. Yeah, we follow in this movie about the Forrest Gump people. A side plot is a guy sitting in a chair building a recliner, and he gets it made, and it's the Lazy Boy. That's a plot. And you're like, okay. And he has crazy sex with his wife. And then, I believe after that, it is Kelly Riley and Paul Bettany that buy the house. Because he's like a World War II survivor, and An insane performance from Paul Bettany. I don't know if I've heard him do an American accent. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. He is so over the top. You can't pin down where it's supposed to be from. It slips every now and then into nothing. And he's just stereotypical, like, I'm drunk, the war sucked, bad dad, girls suck, throughout the whole movie. Until he's like 80 and he's like, I should have been a better man. And you're like, yeah, you should have. I guess that's accurate, but again, I think that's such like a very boomer look on things. Because this whole movie takes place in like eras that Zemeckis is familiar with, and an era where he is like aware of stuff and wants to talk about stuff. And that just doesn't work for this young generation. First off, I'm of a generation that might never see like their own house, or it's going to take longer because the market sucks. And this movie talks about like how easy it is to like maintain houses and how mortgages work. It's very strange what it's doing in that way. And how like you can just get like gifted a house because it used to cost $3,400, and then your dad is just like, take it, it's paid off, who cares? And that's really annoying. It's so lame to see, and just takes you out of it. You're like, yeah, this isn't going to connect with people who are young. They're going to be annoyed by everything we're seeing here. This doesn't feel like it's interesting. Like, you're showing stuff on a camera. It's kind of fascinating, but nobody is like a wholly realized character. And the fact that we're not moving out of this room, it's not exciting. It's really not exciting to like stay in one location the whole time. The primary stuff we see is the relationship between Robin Wright and Tom Hanks' characters. They meet as teenagers, get knocked up, start a family, and then in 2024 she has Alzheimer's or something and can't remember that they used to live in this house. So it's like a beautiful send-off to that. And in some ways, the emotional beats work. There's something really beautiful about, you know, seeing how your life turns out compared to what you thought it was going to be. The small moments that you remember, the big moments you remember. It's kind of beautiful in that idea, even if it's not fully realized in that idea. But the gimmick wears thin, and it's not enough to sustain an audience interest. This was an empty theater I saw it in. I was the only one there. No one's going to want to check this out because it's not really anything. And that's a shame. Because Zemeckis should get butts in seats, but he just doesn't anymore. And these types of movies, they just don't work for the modern audiences that want to go to a movie. This is made for people in their 60s and 70s. And I think it's good to have movies for those people, but they'd rather see Conclave, which is more interesting than this stupid movie. There's a really interesting idea it does play with in like the modern timeline of like what the modern household and family looks like. It's kind of interesting in that capacity. And aside from that, I just think like it's all wishful thinking of like a guy who is kind of out of touch with what people want to see in a movie. And that's kind of a bad thing to have in a movie. Some of your contemporaries still know how to make fun, interesting film. I don't think Zemeckis has it in him, and that kind of sucks, to fully captivate an audience again. This was weird, and I don't think it's good. It's more fascinating than anything, and it's not even like the fun kind of fascinating. You're just like, huh, okay, I guess this is what a modern household looked like in the 50s and 60s and blah, 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 blah. Nobody ends up really happy, and things look bad. But hey, that guy made The Lazy Boy, had a hot wife, and got big, rich, and famous or something. So he won. And then, like, what if you wanted to be a lawyer, but you can't because you got knocked up? You know, just fine. I get it. I think that is such, like, a boomer idea of, like, what a marriage is. And I'm from a different time, so what a marriage looks like, it's different. And you almost get there with like what a modern marriage looks like, but the closest you got was like, what if they were black? That's kind of it. There's a weird subplot that I completely forgot about, which is like their house used to be home to like a Native American tribe, an indigenous tribe, and like prospectors want to come looking for like ancient stuff in their yard. What is that? That's a weird thing to throw in there because it's America? I don't know. A strange little movie. I don't know if it's interesting. It's not, actually. It's depressing. So here, I'm going to give a 4 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck. Remember, this is our home. We lived here.